What's in your QRP bag? Hello, it's Mark, AA3K, and welcome to another installment of AA3K on the Go, where we're going to figure out what the heck is in my QRP bag. And I'll tell you, I probably have too much stuff in here. This past New Year's, I went on a camping trip to Elk Neck State Park in Maryland, which is right at the top of the Chesapeake Bay, and with a whole bunch of friends. And I decided to go for a little walk. During that time of year, only one of the camping loops, the Northeast Loop, is open, but there's 4 or 5 other camping loops, and a couple of them go right by the Chesapeake Bay. So I went for a walk through the various loops, and I came across a couple of campsites that were like 20, 30 feet off of the bay, and I just thought, man, really nice to just camp here and maybe even set up and operate. I did bring my QRP bag with me, and I figured, hey, I still got the rest of the day, why not? So I went back to my camper and I went through the bag and trimmed out a few items to make the load a little bit easier to carry. Unfortunately, I did not bring my $60 Jenkopotamus laptop. I only brought my full-size laptop, so I did bring this down. So any weight savings I did by trimming the bag, I more than made up for this. The hike down to the campsites were on paved roads, gentle hills, if any, and I set up at the campsite right next to the Chesapeake, the 817, end-fed half-wave, and it was fun. I made about 35, 40 CW contacts, a couple of voice contacts, and I went as long as the laptop battery held out, which was less than the battery I typically use with the 817, which is an 8 amp hour LifePo battery. So let's go through my bag, see what I carry, see what I left behind, and I'll also let you know how much this thing weighed by the time I was done. So without much ado, let's get started going through the bag. Alrighty, here is my QRP laptop bag. And we're going to go through each of the pockets and see what I have in it. And then we'll go through and see what I really need to bring with me for a QRP activation. Some items will be kind of like in between. Very handy to have for an activation, but not absolutely required. Let's start in the first pocket, so the front pockets. Whoop. If I can get it out, here we go. This is a Western Digital hard drive case that I found at a Hamfest. I use it to hold my DigiRig and the short DigiRig USB-C cable. I also have in here what do I have in here? BNC to binding posts adapters. I have not actually used them for making an antenna in the field, but I could leave them behind if I needed to. And I also have 19 inches of wire for if I put my telescoping whip I have on the 817 to use it with VHF or UHF. I'll dress those up properly a little bit later. And the next pocket is kind of my stationary miscellaneous pocket. I have this little notebook I picked up from Dollar Store, a set of 3 for $1.25. I do have several tent pegs to use to keep my antenna, like a dipole, spread out on the ground, or cable wire rope holding the end of an antenna over a tree branch, keeping it up there from everything coming crashing down. 3 of those in case I want to use it with a dipole. I do have a miniature QRP dipole, but it is not currently in the bag here. Whoops, forgot something in the DigiRig pocket. And the cables for the DigiRig and this is to attach the Digirig to my 817. I do have the USB-C cable, coiled one that I bought from them, but I found that this cable will conduct RF into the computer that's connected with, and if it doesn't mess up the WSJT's audio interface, it'll at the very least mess up using of the mouse pad. So I can actually probably leave this home. I have not used this in a while. I've been using the Digirig short cable with ferrites, and that's been fine. I also have another USB-C cable that's only about 6 or 8 inches long, just meant to go between a battery pack and your phone. And I had tried that and it was working perfectly. Again, short length, so it wouldn't pick up the lower frequencies and conduct them into the computer. A couple of pens. A spare little plastic bag that came with some headphones in it, just in case I got to store something. One of the rubber duck whips that came with the 817, a couple of pens, some miniature bungee cords, useful for maybe tying off an antenna or something to a tree. Oh, I have 2 notepads in here. I only meant to have 1. The other, or I should say this is, I think, the 6-meter adapter for the rubber ducks that go with the 817. I was very lucky when I bought that 817 that was in there. The first time that I threw a wire out of a hotel window, I knew I needed a little bit of weight, and as I was at the office walking back to my car to go back to the hotel, I noticed a couple of these washers were sitting in the parking lot. I hope they didn't fall out of any of the products we shipped, but I grabbed that and I've just kept the washer in here on the keyring holder. Let's go to the side pocket over here. And this is the MFJ 817 power supply that I mentioned in my dressing up the 817 video. And this is one of the items I did leave behind. There was no electricity at that campsite I went to, so I absolutely needed to run off of a battery. The other side pocket is for water, and sometimes I actually do bring this if I intend to film the activation or something. This is a cell phone camera holder to attach on a tripod. I think I left this also back at the campsite because I wasn't planning to film anything. My wife did walk down with me and she snapped a few pictures, and if I can find it, I'll throw it in an inset so you can see my setup, which is your typical QRP setup at a picnic table. In this little pocket, we have a golf ball with a screw eye in it. And what I do is I have, as you'll see later in here, some light cord and with a loop at the end of it, and I run the loop through the eyelet around the golf ball, and I use this to toss over a low branch. I don't aim, when I'm doing a QRP and putting an antenna up in a tree, I don't aim for any extremely high branches. I just make it convenient to get the antenna up and off the ground and working for me. Yes, height truly helps, but sometimes the areas are tight and I have that only one branch to choose from. And I don't want to get anything tangled in a tree. And if this should have to get lost or something, well, I can just go back to the driving range and get another one. A spare charging cable. This one actually charges pretty slow, and I probably pulled this out and left it back at the campsite. I'm not sure if I brought the golf ball with me. I was planning to use the Jactite telescoping fiberglass mast, and that's what I did use, and because I wasn't sure how much attention I would draw in case any park staff came around. This is essentially my antenna pocket. So this is the wire I typically use to throw out the hotel room window. The speaker wire is the copper and silver, and the counterpoise is the white. And that is just a camouflage duct tape covered lotion bottle from the hotel to give me a little weight, and if it hits a window, it'll just bounce. I left this back at the campsite. And this is the KM4 ACK end-fed half-wave kit that I put together and added the hot melt glue to protect the back side of the SO239 connector. I've gone SO239 instead of BNC just because all my other coax cables and such were that, in the back of the FT817 is SO239. This is a nice little kit, easy to build. I did add this little chain to hang this end off. Comes with the wire winder, so it wraps up very nicely. I've got a lot of extra wire here, and I'm coming to the conclusion I'm going to trim it off. Very easy to assemble. A friend of mine at work assembled one too. I tuned it up for him, and with the experience of tuning up my 1010s end-fed half-wave and this one, I had his tuned up within 15 minutes or so. I knew exactly what I needed to do. Stretch it out, set my Rig Expert AA55 zoom to show SWR in 5 different frequencies, and just kept shortening the antenna until I got it to resonate for him in the phone band, and he's very happy with it. This was the antenna I used for that activation. I have 50 feet of RG 174 coax. Got this at a Hamfest, and the PL259s with the 174 adapters, and put this together myself. I'll tell you, getting this coax, the sheath to feed through that thin hole there, that was a little bit of work. Took me each end probably took me 15-20 minutes just to slide it through, but then put it together, solder it all together. This has been working fine for me. Yeah. It also makes a very good counterpoise for the antenna. What else do I have in this pocket? Nothing. Woo. My MyAD 8 amp hour, actually I have 2 of these, I labeled them 1 and 2, 8 amp hour LifePo battery. I took one of these with me for the activation. It held up fine. It held up far longer than the laptop battery did. I was there for about 2 hours. Oh, I forgot. No wonder this bag was so heavy. I had my second battery in here. Did not intend. And this is the situation. I did not have a second battery with me. If something went wrong with the battery number 1 or one of these 8 amp hour batteries, I would have been packing up early and heading back to the campsite. As it was, the laptop's battery did give up the ghost on me, and that necessitated me finishing up the activation with logging pencil and paper. But it's one of the reasons I carry that. We have my bag that I keep the 817 in, as well as its microphone, some earbuds, courtesy of airlines. I forget which airline gave me the white one and the black one. The black one seems to work a little bit better. Standard thing. I did chase 3 stations on voice. I tried calling CQ, but after 15 minutes of no takers, I decided, let me move on to just operating CW, which was the bulk of my activation. The power cord with fuses that I attached to the battery, and power poles at the end of it, so it can either go to the power pole extension cord that I have or directly into the power pole adapter on the back of my 817. One thing that is not in this section is my box that holds my keyer, memory keyer, and Morse code paddles that I've showed you in my previous dressing up the 817 video. I'm doing trying to make a little protector for those buttons on the 817. I'm sorry, make a little protector for those buttons on the memory keyer. So it's actually sitting out on my desk right now. In case I happen to use a non-resonant antenna, and this is what I use when I'm operating, say, from the hotel, a ZM2 antenna tuning unit. There'll be a review about this. It's a nice little unit. It's compact size, doesn't require batteries. You can order this as kit pre-assembled and with either SO239s or female BNC connectors. I typically go with SO239s, and if I need to use BNC, I'll just use an adapter. Obviously, my call sign on it. And coax jumper to go between the radio and the antenna tuner. And that was another. So I did leave the antenna tuner behind, as well as that jumper. Not a tremendous amount of weight savings, but you know, every little bit counts. And the hike to that campsite was all on paved roads, no particular hills or anything. So it was a nice little hike. Now, as I mentioned, I carry some cord, and this is just to protect the cord while it's in the backpack here. And this is a military winder that I picked up years ago at a Dayton Ham Fest. So I just have this lightweight cord on it. It's getting kind of frayed in spots. I may want to replace it. And I've got the loop at the end in case I need it. I've got a carabiner here. This, I think I did pull this out of the backpack and leave it behind because I knew I was going to use the Jactite, as well as my end-fed half wave, which is resonant on 40, 20, 15, and 10 meters. Clipboard with a notepad. Quick band cheat sheet for the U.S. amateur radio bands. The Parks on the Air. Whoops, it'll show out better this way. Parks on the Air. I put this out, let people know that, yeah, I'm not some weirdo sitting there. If you would like this Word document that you can edit yourself and get laminated if you want, or I've seen some people put it in a picture frame, the form is in the file section of the Parks on the Air Facebook group. If you leave a note down in the comments section of this video, or email me at aa3konthego@gmail.com, I can send you a copy of this form, and then you can edit it to what your call sign. I did see one person put a picture on the Facebook group where they took off the questions welcome comment. What else do I have here? Just some instructions on using the keyer, and some instructions on using the features of the mic and QRP frequencies, all on a handy little clipboard from the dollar store. And since I do use the Digirig, and Dennis very nicely sends you stickers, I just said I have to decorate the back of the clip. Just a couple more things in here. When I bought the 817, it did come with a nifty manual for it, which has been very handy for me figuring out certain things when I'm in the field. It actually did not come with the actual 817 manual. It came with the 817 copy of the 817 ND manual, but they're close enough. And the last thing in here, which I probably also left behind, is this extendable whip that I put a right angle BNC connector on it. I had actually ordered some battery clips for TYT batteries, and it was off of eBay in China. And well, they must have gotten somebody's package mixed up because they sent me this instead. And when I contacted them, they said, yeah, here's your money back. Don't bother returning it. You can just throw it away. And it's actually a nice kind of antenna. And its frequencies, let's see now, are 87 to 108 megahertz. And I decided, I don't think this is really a loading coil down here. And I looked and looked and looked at it, and I just decided, wait, what if I start collapsing it down? And if you give me a second, I will find it. And when I played around with it, and I figured out if I collapse these lower sections, whoops, till that gets to that black Sharpie line that I put on here, the antenna is just the right length, 19 inches for resonance on the 2 meter band. And I can shorten it some more, 470 centimeters, and get a much better match to the 817 for VHF and UHF than you get with the rubber duck antennas. I've only really used this while in a hotel and just chit-chatting around. Again, this is another item that I probably left behind. For an absolute minimal, what do I need? Obviously, you need an antenna. You got to get your signal in the air. You should have a pen and some sort of paper for logging, at least 2 pens or a pencil to write. If you're going to use a mast, you can use bungee cords to tie up the mast, or use your heaving item and cord to get over a tree limb, and that's especially handy for an end-fed half wave. So we're going to put this in the I do need to bring it. Do I need to bring the Digirig and its cables and such? I'm going to say yes, because you may have to go to FT8 to save the activation. I also, if I am computer logging, I really like being able that the computer have the interface to the radio and be able to read the frequency and mode. So if you change frequencies and mode, you don't have to remember to do so in the log. It'll be picked up automatically. I'm going to say that. Obviously going to say we have to bring the cables for the Digirig. Connection to the battery, if you don't have the battery built into your radio. A battery. I let the coax be the counterpoise for the end-fed half wave. So I'm going to include the 50 feet of coax. Can't forget the star of the show, the 817. Really handy to bring your paperwork, notes and such. And advertise Parks on the Air. Kind of makes your station look a little bit more official. And if somebody sees this, they may be less inclined to say, what is that weirdo doing? Nifty manual, not exactly required. Antenna tuning unit, only if you're going to be using a non-resonant antenna, or if you know you've got bad ground conductivity or something and your normally resonant antenna is acting up, but I think you can leave this behind for the most part. It is handy though to bring a second antenna, and the long wire definitely needs an antenna tuning unit. I have a speaker wire dipole I'll be talking about in a future video. That is also designed as a doublet and is not resonant on any frequency, so that also needs an antenna tuning unit. So, you know, a second antenna, especially if it's non-resonant, we're going to put these in the pile and say we're going to take them. Wow, most of the bag is moving back into the take pile. If you're using the dipole and you need to keep the legs spread out and such, and you're not going to get into too much trouble poking in the ground, bringing in the tent stakes is handy. If you're not going to have power available, you definitely don't need to bring a power supply. So we're going to leave this behind. The bungee cords, let's add them to the take pile. If you don't have those small notepads, I have the bigger size notepad, but the small notepad is just fine. If you don't have the U.S. amateur bands memorized, a card like this is handy. Also, one of the logging apps I have in my phone does have a list of the amateur band allocations for U.S. hams, but you can also write it down within that little notebook I showed. We'll throw this in there because that's almost nothing. Well, here we go. And I basically think that is the minimum to take with me. Here it is. It was buried deep in the bag, and the LDG 1-to-1 common mode choke. I typically use this with the KM4 ACK end-fed half wave, or really any end-fed half wave. I also use one on my 7300, not this particular model, but a ferrite bead choke. And I will throw this into the take pile. So we got a little bit there. It is probably a few pounds. I'll get this all weighed out with the bag and put it on the screen. On my hike down to the campsite to operate from for a laptop, I had my normal full-size laptop, 17-inch screen, and I had this in the laptop pocket on the case. So this is a full-size computer. I should say this is a full-size laptop, a couple of pounds. That did weigh me down a little bit. Again, I was walking on paved roads, so it's probably better just to take pencil and paper, tablet, your cell phone if you want electronic logging, and going to be doing a much more strenuous hike to get to where you want to operate. I also carried my Jactite 31-foot telescoping fiberglass mast. Again, this is a pound or two. It's approximately 4 feet long. It wasn't that hard to carry. I just had hoped that if anybody saw me, they wouldn't think I was carrying a rifle or anything. I used this to hold up the free end of the KM4 ACK and fed half wave and lean it into a tree branch, so this with enough angle that it wouldn't get pulled down by the weight of the wire. But the KM4 ACK and fed half wave is built with a very lightweight wire. I built my 1010s and fed half wave that I showed you in an earlier video with 14 gauge wire. So I have used this with that, and I've needed to make sure that this had a good lean in the branch so the weight of the wire didn't pull the mast down. It has fallen down in the past, so I've learned to be more careful with it. And that's it. It's still going to be a few pounds. I could probably go lighter. If I don't want to bring any backup stuff, just bring the radio, antenna, battery, or get the WinCamp battery for the 817, no pad and pen to log on, and key, microphone, memory keyer. I can get this down to a very light setup, but I'm also in the situation if anything fails me, I'm turning around, going home with a failed activation, or possibly not even getting on the air at all. Hey, thank you for watching. If you like this information, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'm trying to give you more information on how to turn the outdoors into your personal ham radio shack. This is Mark, AA3K73, and I'll catch you next time.